President Kang Jisoo stared at the holographic display showing the approaching Confederation fleet. Hundreds of warships were moving toward Earth's solar system, led by High Counselor Vethrax himself. The largest military force in galactic history was coming to silence humanity forever. "How long do we have?" she asked Fleet Admiral Park Sang-yuk. 18 hours until they reach the outer planets, the Admiral replied. Their fleet is massive, but their ships are using the same outdated FTL principles that Engineer Song identified. We might have a technological advantage. Might isn't good enough. What are our options? We can fight, we can surrender, or we can run. Admiral Park looked grim. None of those options are good. President Kang turned to the other people in the emergency meeting room. Dr. Park Minji had just returned from Nexus Prime with Admiral Choi. Captain Lee Jiho stood beside them, still processing everything that had happened. Dr. Bae Soo-jin was there with her genetic analysis equipment, and Engineer Song Nara had her technical reports ready. "What exactly are we fighting for?" President Kang asked. "Is revealing the truth worth starting a galactic war?" "With respect, Madam President," Dr. Park said, "we didn't start this war. We just uncovered a truth that powerful people wanted to keep hidden. The choice to fight was made by those who prefer comfortable lies to difficult facts." Before President Kang could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the government complex. A new ship had just appeared in Earth's solar system, but it wasn't part of the Confederation fleet. The vessel was enormous and unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Its hull seemed to shimmer with colors that had no names, and it moved without any visible propulsion system. Most amazingly, it was broadcasting in perfect English. "This is Elder Coxmari of the Dorathi people. I request permission to speak with Earth's leaders immediately." President Kang had heard of the Dorathi. They were the oldest known species in the galaxy, so ancient that they barely interacted with other civilizations. Most people thought they were myths. "Patch them through," she ordered. The hologram that appeared was beautiful and strange. Elder Coxmari looked somewhat like a tall human, but with silver skin that seemed to glow from within and eyes that held the wisdom of ages. "President Kang, I bring greetings from the Dorathi Collective. We have been watching recent events with great interest. Elder Coxmari, we're honored by your presence, but I'm afraid this might not be the best time for a diplomatic visit. On the contrary, this is exactly the right time." The elder's expression was calm but serious. The humans have uncovered a truth that the galaxy needs to hear, and the Confederation's response proves that some species have learned nothing from history. "You know about our discoveries?" "We know everything, President Kang. The Dorathi are the only species that maintained accurate historical records throughout the last 50,000 years. We remember the silent ones, we remember their sacrifice, and we remember why they chose to disappear." Dr. Park stepped forward. "Elder, what really happened 50,000 years ago? Why did humans abandon their galactic empire?" Elder Coxmari's expression grew sad. "Because they loved their children more than their power." The elder began to tell the real story. 50,000 years ago, humanity had indeed built a vast interstellar civilization. They had discovered dozens of younger species and helped them develop technology, culture, and philosophy. The galaxy had been a place of learning and growth, but then came the Devourers. "They appeared from beyond our galaxy," Elder Coxmari explained. "A force of pure destruction that consumed worlds, stars, entire solar systems. Nothing could stop them. Nothing could even slow them down." "What were they?" Engineer Song asked. "We never fully understood. Perhaps they were a natural phenomenon like a cosmic storm. Perhaps they were artificial, created by some long-dead civilization. It didn't matter. They were coming and they would destroy everything in their path. How did humans stop them? By making the ultimate sacrifice. Human scientists discovered that the Devourers were attracted to advanced technology and large populations. The more developed a civilization became, the faster the Devourers would find and destroy it." President Kang felt a chill of understanding. So humans dismantled their own empire to protect the other species. More than that, they used their most advanced technology to create a barrier at the galaxy's edge, sealing the Devourers outside our cosmic neighborhood. But maintaining that barrier required a terrible price. Humanity had to give up almost all their advanced technology and return to a primitive state on Earth. They chose to save us by sacrificing themselves. Dr. Bae whispered. "The barrier held," Elder Coxmari continued. The Devourers moved on to other galaxies. The younger species survived and eventually developed their own civilizations, using the foundation that humans had provided. But the cost was that humanity itself was forgotten. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Captain Jiho asked. "Why let the other species believe they had developed independently?" Because humanity's sacrifice was not meant to create debt or obligation. They wanted the younger species to grow and develop on their own merits. The Dorathi honored that wish by keeping the secret. "Until now," President Kang observed. "Until now," the Elder agreed, because the Confederation's reaction proves that some species have become too proud to accept truth. They would rather destroy those who challenge their authority than admit their history was built on lies. As if summoned by those words, another alarm sounded. The Confederation fleet had arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. High Counselor Vethrax was demanding humanity's immediate surrender. "Elder Coxmari," President Kang said urgently, "will you help us? The Dorathi do not fight wars, President Kang. But we will ensure that truth is heard throughout the galaxy." What happened next was the strangest battle in galactic history. When the Confederation fleet opened fire on Earth's defenses, they discovered that human technology had evolved far beyond their expectations. Admiral Park's ships moved with impossible grace. Their weapons struck with perfect accuracy, and their shields seemed to absorb energy attacks and turn them into power. "It's like they know exactly what we're going to do before we do it." One Confederation captain reported to High Counselor Vethrax, "Impossible. They're primitives, but it wasn't impossible at all. Human engineers, working with the genetic memory of their ancient ancestors, had intuitively redeveloped technology that was 50,000 years more advanced than anything the Confederation possessed." The battle lasted only 6 hours. When it ended, the Confederation fleet was defeated but not destroyed. Admiral Park had deliberately targeted only weapons and engines, leaving the alien ships stranded but intact. "This is Admiral Park Sangyuk of Earth Defense Command," he broadcast to the defeated fleet. "Your crews are unharmed, and rescue ships are already being dispatched. But your war against truth is over." High Counselor Vethrax's response was filled with rage and disbelief. "This proves nothing. You may have superior weapons, but you're still the descendants of cowards who abandoned the galaxy." "No," said Elder Coxmari, her voice now broadcasting to every ship in the system. "They are the descendants of heroes who sacrificed everything to save us all." The Elder then shared the full historical records of the Dorathi with every vessel, every planet, and every communication network in the galaxy. The truth spread faster than light itself. Humanity had not abandoned the galaxy out of cowardice, but had given up their empire to save every other species from annihilation. The response was immediate and overwhelming. On world after world, populations that had just learned their true history began demanding answers from their leaders. The Confederation government collapsed within days as species after species withdrew their support. But humans didn't try to reclaim their ancient empire. Instead, Captain Lee Jiho proposed something completely new. "We don't want to rule the galaxy," he announced in a broadcast to all inhabited worlds. "We want to help build something better, a government based on cooperation instead of hierarchy, a civilization that values truth over comfort, a future where every species can reach their full potential." The response was remarkable. Representatives from dozens of species came to Earth to help create what would become the United Galactic Assembly. Even some veteran joined the effort, led by younger crystals who had grown tired of their elders' lies and arrogance. The new government was different from anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of one species ruling over others, it was designed around the principle that diversity made civilization stronger. Each world had a voice. Each species contributed their unique gifts, and decisions were made through discussion rather than domination. Dr. Park Minji became the first director of Galactic Heritage, working to uncover and preserve the full history of galactic civilization. Her research revealed that the story was even more complex and beautiful than they had imagined. Humanity's ancient empire hadn't just taught other species technology. They had helped them develop their own unique cultures, philosophies, and ways of understanding the universe. "We weren't trying to make other species into copies of humans," she explained to the assembly during one of her first reports. "We were helping them become the best versions of themselves." The alarm started ringing at dawn. "Dr. Park, Minji woke up to the sound of boots, running through the corridors and Zethkar's angry crystal voice echoing through the station. Speakers. All human personnel report to Docking Bay 7 immediately. Your research privileges have been revoked. Captain Lee Jiho was already dressed when she found him. His face was grim. They know we found something. Kim Taman saw security forces surrounding the archive levels an hour ago. What about our data? Safe. Song Nara hid backup copies in the ship's computers before they could search our quarters. Dr. Park felt relief and worry at the same time. The information was safe, but now they were in real trouble. The Galactic Confederation was not happy about humans asking uncomfortable questions. In the docking bay, Zethkar waited with a squad of security guards. His crystal body pulsed with angry red light. Your species has violated the terms of your visit. You have accessed classified information and interfered with Confederation security. We only looked at historical records, Captain Jiho said calmly. Is learning about your past a crime? Some knowledge is too dangerous for primitive species to understand, Zethkar replied. You will return to your home system immediately. Actually, said a new voice, they won't be going anywhere just yet. Everyone turned to see Admiral Choi Hyunwoo walking into the docking bay. He was followed by a squad of Earth Marines and several people in civilian clothes. The Admiral was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes that missed nothing. Admiral Choi, Captain Jiho said with surprise. What are you doing here? Earth received your coded messages, Captain. The President decided this situation needed more senior attention. Admiral Choi looked at Zethkar. I'm afraid our ships are having technical difficulties. We'll need to remain in this system for several days while our engineers complete repairs. Zethkar's light flickered with anger. This is unacceptable. You will leave immediately or face the consequences. What consequences? Admiral Choi asked mildly. According to galactic law, ships in distress have the right to make emergency repairs. Unless you're threatening to attack vessels that pose no danger to you. Before Zethkar could answer, one of the civilian newcomers stepped forward. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and graying hair. Dr. Park, I'm Dr. Bae Soo-jin from Seoul University. I specialize in human genetics and evolutionary biology. I understand you've made some interesting discoveries about our species' history. Dr. Park felt her excitement return. Dr. Bae, yes, we've found evidence that humans may have been in space much earlier than anyone thought. Show me everything. For the next several hours, Dr. Park shared all the information they had gathered. Dr. Bae studied the artifact photos, the star maps, and the genetic markers that Korthani had provided from the hidden archives. Meanwhile, engineer Song Nara worked with the newcomers to analyze Confederation technology in more detail. What they found was even more shocking than before. It's not just that they don't understand their own technology, Song Nara explained to the group gathered in the Harmony's main conference room. Their entire technological base is built on principles that match human engineering approaches. The way they design ships, the way they organize computer systems, even the way they think about physics problems. It all follows patterns that human scientists developed independently. Dr. Bae looked up from her genetic analysis equipment. That makes sense given what I'm seeing here. What have you found? Admiral Choi asked. The genetic markers in these artifact samples aren't alien. They're human. Very old human, but definitely from our species. She paused, letting the implications sink in. The silent ones that the aliens' hidden records talk about. They weren't mysterious visitors from another species. They were us. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at Dr. Bae, trying to process what she had just said. That's impossible, Kim Taman said finally. Humans 50,000 years ago were living in caves. Some humans were living in caves, Dr. Bae corrected. But apparently others were building spaceships and exploring the galaxy. But why don't we remember? Song Nara asked. Why did our own species forget that we used to have a galactic civilization? That's what we need to figure out, Admiral Choi said. Dr. Park, what else do the alien records say about the disappearance of these silent ones? Not much. According to Korthani, they just vanished about 50,000 years ago. No explanation, no gradual decline. They were here teaching and building, and then suddenly they were gone. A new voice joined the conversation. Actually, there might be an explanation for that. Everyone turned to see a young Quilari scientist standing in the doorway. Her insect-like features were nervous, but her eyes were determined. I'm Tim Reck. I work in the Confederation's Xenological Department. I've been, listening to your discussions. Are you here to spy on us? Kim Taman asked suspiciously. No, I'm here because I think you're right. Timrek stepped into the room. My people have creation myths that we've always assumed were just stories. But listening to your evidence, I realize they might be historical records. What do the myths say? Dr. Park asked. They tell of skyfathers who came from the direction of the galactic rim, tall beings with strange pale skin and hair that came in many colors. They taught my ancestors to farm, to build cities, to work metal. They gave us mathematics and writing. And then, when a great darkness threatened the galaxy, they chose to sacrifice themselves to save their children. Dr. Bay leaned forward. What kind of great darkness? The myths are unclear. Some cosmic threat that could have destroyed all life. The Skyfathers had the power to stop it, but only by giving up their empire and returning to their origin world. They chose to save us instead of preserving their own civilization. The implications hit everyone at the same time. Captain Jiho spoke first. You're saying that ancient humans gave up their galactic empire to save the alien species they had helped develop. It would explain everything, Dr. Park said excitedly. Why the advanced civilization disappeared so suddenly. Why humans on Earth reverted to primitive conditions. Why aliens were left with technology they didn't fully understand. And why we're so good at redeveloping that same technology now, Song Nara added. It's in our genetic memory somehow. Admiral Choi stood up. Dr. Bay, how sure are you about the genetic evidence? Completely sure. The artifact samples are definitely from ancient humans, and the technological patterns match human thinking so closely that there's no doubt about the connection. Then we have a problem, the Admiral said grimly, because the Confederation leadership is never going to accept this. They've built their entire authority on being the galaxy's natural leaders, learning that they're actually following the example of a species they consider primitive that could destroy their government. As if summoned by his words, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Through the conference room's window, they could see Confederation warships moving into attack positions around the human vessels. Zethkar's voice echoed through the communication system. Human vessels, you have 30 minutes to leave Confederation space. Any attempt to remain will be considered an act of war. Admiral Choi looked at his officers. Recommendations? We could fight, Kim Taman suggested. Our technology seems to be more advanced than theirs. Or we could leave and let them continue living with their lies, Dr. Park said quietly. No, said a firm voice from the doorway. Captain Jiho stepped forward. We can't do either of those things. What do you suggest, Captain? Jiho looked out at the alien ships surrounding them. We tell the truth, not just to the Confederation Council, but to everyone. Every species, every world, every person in the galaxy. They deserve to know their real history. That could start a galactic war, Admiral Choi warned. Maybe, Jiho admitted. But living with lies has never made anyone free. And if we really are the descendants of the people who helped build this civilization, then we have a responsibility to help make it better. Timrek stepped forward. If you decide to reveal the truth, you won't be alone. There are others like me, scientists and historians who have suspected the official story was incomplete. We will support you. Dr. Park felt a mixture of fear and excitement. They were about to change the galaxy forever. Either they would help create a new age of truth and cooperation, or they would start the worst war in galactic history. But as she looked at the evidence they had gathered, she knew they had no choice. The truth was too important to hide. Captain Lee Jiho stood on the bridge of the Earthship Harmony and watched the stars bend around them. The new faster-than-light drive hummed quietly beneath his feet. After 300 years of dreaming about the stars, humans had finally built a ship that could reach them. Captain, we're getting a signal, said Lieutenant Kim Taman from his station. It's coming from the Nexus Prime system. Lee Jiho nodded. They had been expecting this. 3 months ago, Earth's first deep space probe had sent back amazing news. There were other intelligent species out there, lots of them. They had formed something called the Galactic Confederation. When the probe's message reached Earth, the aliens had responded quickly. They wanted to meet the new species that had just learned to travel between stars. Dr. Park, are you ready for this? Jiho asked the woman standing beside him. Dr. Park Minji adjusted her glasses and smiled. She was Earth's best expert on ancient cultures and languages. If anyone could understand alien civilizations, it was her. As ready as anyone can be for first contact, Captain. Engineer Song Nara looked up from her controls. The FTL drive is working perfectly. We should arrive at Nexus Prime in 2 hours. The next 2 hours felt like 2 days. Every person on the Harmony knew they were making history. They were the first humans to visit another star system and meet alien species. When they dropped out of FTL near Nexus Prime, the crew gasped. The system was full of ships. Huge vessels that looked like living crystals floated next to others that seemed to be made of metal and bone. The planet itself glowed with millions of lights. Incoming transmission, Kim Taman announced. They're speaking.
Wait, they're speaking English.
A voice filled the bridge. It sounded like wind chimes mixed with static. Human vessel Harmony. This is Traffic Control Nexus Prime. You are cleared to dock at Station 7. Welcome to civilized space. Jiho felt a small sting at the word civilized. It suggested that Earth wasn't civilized yet. But he kept his thoughts to himself. Station 7 was enormous. The Harmony looked like a toy boat next to it. As their ship moved through the docking tube, the crew got their first look at real aliens. The creatures waiting for them were beautiful and strange. Some looked like walking crystals that caught and reflected light in amazing patterns. These were the Vethran, the aliens had explained. Others looked like giant insects with 4 arms and shiny black eyes. Those were the Quillari. Remember, Jiho told his crew, we represent all of Earth today. Let's make a good impression. The alien who greeted them was clearly important. His crystal body was larger than the others and glowed with a cold blue light. When he spoke, his voice sounded like breaking glass. I am High Administrator Zethkar of the Vethran Collective. You are the representatives of the species called humans? Yes, I'm Captain Lee Jiho of Earth. This is Dr. Park Minji, Lieutenant Kim Taman, and Engineer Song Nara. Zethkar looked them up and down like a teacher examining students. You've developed FTL travel quite quickly for such a young species. Most take much longer to advance from planetary to interstellar status. Dr. Park stepped forward. We're very honored to meet you and learn about the Galactic Confederation. Of course you are, Zethkar said in a tone that suggested this was obvious. Come. The Council is waiting to evaluate your species for possible membership. As they walked through the station, Dr. Park noticed something odd. The walls were covered in symbols and patterns, but some of them looked familiar. She had studied ancient human cultures for years, and these designs reminded her of stone circles and pyramids on Earth. Excuse me, she said to Zethkar. Those symbols on the walls, how old are they? Ancient beyond your understanding, the alien replied. Our civilization has existed for over 40,000 years. These symbols represent the wisdom of ages. Dr. Park frowned. The symbols looked exactly like ones she had seen in Stone Age caves on Earth, but that was impossible. Humans had only been building cities for a few thousand years. The council chamber was huge and filled with representatives from 12 different species. Some floated in water tanks, others hung from the ceiling, and a few looked almost human except for their strange skin colors. The leader was a Vethran even larger than Zethkar. His crystal body was ancient and cracked, and his light pulsed slowly. I am High Counselor Vethrax. We have decided to offer your species junior membership in the Galactic Confederation. Captain Jiho felt excitement rise in his chest. That's wonderful news. What does membership include? Junior membership, Vethrax corrected. Your species will be guided by more advanced civilizations until you prove capable of full participation. This usually takes several thousand years. The excitement died. Several thousand years? Your species has only just learned to leave your home planet, said a Quillari representative. Her voice buzzed like insects. You have no experience with galactic politics, trade, or diplomacy. You must be taught, Song Nara spoke up. With respect, our technology allowed us to build FTL drives in just 50 years of serious research. We might learn faster than you think. The aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. Cute, said Zethkar. But understanding technology is not the same as understanding civilization. Dr. Park was only half listening to the political talk. She was studying the architecture of the chamber. The more she looked, the more familiar it became. The proportions, the way the columns were arranged, even the decorative patterns, they all reminded her of ancient human sites. Captain, she whispered to Jiho, I need to study their historical records. Jiho nodded. He addressed the council. We're grateful for your offer. However, We would like to learn more about the Confederation before accepting membership terms. Could we have access to your historical archives? The council members looked at each other. Finally, Vethrak spoke. Very well. You may study our public records for 1 standard week. Zethkar will supervise your research. As they left the chamber, Dr. Park felt excitement building. Something was wrong with the official story these aliens were telling. The symbols, the architecture, the way everything was designed. It all felt familiar in a way that should have been impossible. What are you thinking? Captain Jiho asked quietly. Dr. Park looked around to make sure Zethkar wasn't listening. Captain, I think we've been here before. What do you mean? I mean humans. Not us personally, but our species. I think we've been in this part of the galaxy before. Kim Taman raised an eyebrow. That's impossible. We only invented space travel 200 years ago. Maybe, Dr. Park said. Or maybe we just invented it again. That night, as the human crew settled into their guest quarters on the station, Dr. Park stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, a small blue planet that everyone said was home to a young, primitive species. But the more she thought about the symbols and architecture she had seen, the more convinced she became that there was another story. A story the Galactic Confederation either didn't know or didn't want to tell. Tomorrow, she would start digging into their archives, and she had a feeling that what she found would change everything humans thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. The stars seemed to twinkle with secrets, waiting to be discovered. Dr. Park Minji sat in front of a glowing screen, her eyes red from hours of reading. The Galactic Confederation's public archives were huge, but something felt wrong about them. There were gaps everywhere. Entire civilizations were mentioned in passing and then never explained. Dates didn't match up. Important events were described in just a few words. Find anything interesting? Lieutenant Kim Taman asked. He was supposed to be guarding her, but mostly he was trying to stay awake. They had been in the archives for 3 days. That's the problem, Dr. Park said. I'm not finding things. Look at this. She pointed to the screen. This entry talks about the first builders who created the foundation of galactic civilization. But there are no details, no descriptions, no artifacts, nothing. Kim Taman leaned closer. Maybe they just lost the information over time. For 40,000 years of history? And look at this pattern. Dr. Park pulled up another screen. Every species has detailed records going back thousands of years, but they all stop at the same point. About 50,000 years ago, there's almost nothing. Like something happened that they don't want to talk about, or something they don't remember. Dr. Park rubbed her tired eyes. I need to get into the restricted archives. That's not going to happen. Zethkar watches everything we do. As if summoned by his name, the crystal alien appeared in the doorway. His blue light pulsed irritably. Are you finding our history educational, humans? Very educational, Dr. Park lied smoothly. Though I notice there are some gaps in the early periods. Are there other archives that might have more complete records? Zethkar's light flickered. The archives contain all necessary information. Perhaps your primitive mind simply cannot understand advanced historical concepts. After he left, Kim Taman shook his head. I'm getting really tired of being called primitive. Meanwhile, engineer Song Nara was having her own discoveries in the station's technical sections. She had been given permission to study Confederation technology to help humanity catch up to galactic standards. But what she found confused her. The aliens' most advanced systems were based on principles that seemed outdated compared to what she had learned at university. Their quantum computers used equations that human scientists had moved beyond decades ago. Their energy systems were powerful but inefficient compared to human designs. It's like they're using technology they don't really understand, she told Captain Jiho that evening. They can operate it and maintain it, but they didn't invent the basic principles. What do you mean? I mean their FTL drives use theories that human physicists figured out were incomplete 50 years ago, but somehow they made them work anyway. It's like they're following instructions without understanding why the instructions work. Captain Jiho frowned. Could they have gotten their technology from somewhere else? That's what I'm starting to think. The breakthrough came when Dr. Park met Korthani. The old librarian was from the Solareth, an aquatic species that lived in water tanks. Her voice bubbled through a translator, but her eyes were sharp and intelligent. "You are the human who asks uncomfortable questions," Korthani said. "I'm just trying to understand your history." "Our history," Korthani repeated. "Yes, that is the problem. It is not truly ours, is it?" Dr. Park felt her heart speed up. "What do you mean?" Korthani looked around carefully, then leaned closer to her tank's glass wall. "I have been a librarian for 3 centuries. I have read every record, every fragment, every whisper of the past, and I have found things that do not belong in the official stories." "What kinds of things?" "References to the Silent Ones. Mentions of teachers who came from far away and then vanished. Technologies that appeared fully formed with no development history, and symbols that match no known language but appear on the oldest artifacts from every world." Dr. Park's hands shook with excitement. "Could you show me these references?" "Not here. Too dangerous. But tonight, when the station sleeps, come to Archive Sub-Level 7. Bring your security friend. You will need protection for what I am about to show you." That night, Dr. Park and Kim Taeman snuck through darkened corridors to Sub-Level 7. The area was supposed to be closed for maintenance, but Korthani was waiting for them. "Follow me," the old Solarith said, moving her water tank on silent repulsors. She led them to a hidden room behind the main archives. The walls were covered with images and documents that Dr. Park had never seen before. "These are the real records," Korthani explained. "The ones the Council has decided to forget." Dr. Park stared at the images. Ancient star maps showed exploration routes that covered half the galaxy. Artifact photos displayed tools and structures that looked incredibly advanced. And everywhere there were symbols that made her heart race. "I know these symbols," she whispered. "They're from Earth. From human archaeological sites that are tens of thousands of years old." "The Silent Ones," Korthani said. "That is what we call them in the hidden records. They came from the direction of what you call the Milky Way's outer rim. They taught us agriculture, mathematics, engineering. They helped us reach the stars. And then, about 50,000 years ago, they disappeared." Kim Taeman studied a star map. "This exploration pattern, it starts from Earth's section of the galaxy and spreads outward. The Silent Ones were not just teachers," Korthani continued. "They were builders. They created the first FTL drives, the first space stations, the first interstellar governments. Everything we think of as galactic civilization, they gave it to us." Dr. Park felt like her world was spinning. "But that would mean that humans were already in space when my people were still living in caves on the ocean floor," Korthani finished. "That your species had a galactic empire when we were barely intelligent. But why is this hidden? Why doesn't anyone remember?" Korthani's expression grew sad. "Because the Council has spent thousands of years making sure no one remembers. They have convinced themselves and everyone else that galactic civilization grew naturally from the efforts of current species. They cannot accept that we are all students of vanished teachers. But humans are still here," Kim Taeman pointed out. "We didn't vanish." "Didn't you?" Korthani asked. "Look at your own history. 50,000 years ago, what were humans doing?" "Doctor," Park thought about it. "Living in caves, using stone tools. We have no records of any advanced civilization from that time. So the Silent Ones who built our galactic empire, where did they go?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Dr. Park stared at the ancient star maps and artifact photos. Everything pointed to the same impossible conclusion. "They went home," she said quietly. "They went back to Earth and forgot everything they had built." "But why would they do that?" Kim Taeman asked. "I don't know," Dr. Park admitted, "but I'm going to find out." As they prepared to leave the hidden archive, Korthani gave them a small device. "This contains copies of everything I have shown you. But be careful. The Council will do anything to keep this information secret. They have built their entire authority on the lie that they are the galaxy's natural leaders." Walking back through the dark corridors, Dr. Park felt like she was carrying explosives instead of data files. If she was right about what they had discovered, it would change everything. not just for humans, but for every species in the Galactic Confederation. The next morning, she sent a coded message back to Earth. Professor Yoon Dae-hyun, her old teacher and the world's expert on human prehistory, needed to see what they had found. His response came back within hours, and it was everything she had feared and hoped for. The artifact descriptions match sites we've discovered in Africa and Asia, his message said. Sites we thought were just unusual stone arrangements. But if your data is correct, they're not human prehistoric sites. They're the remains of human spaceports. Dr. Park stared out at the stars surrounding Nexus Prime. Somewhere out there, 50,000 years ago, humans had built an empire. They had taught other species and helped them reach the stars, and then they had given it all up and gone home to Earth. The question that kept her awake that night was simple but terrifying. Why? Captain Oh Min-hyuk adjusted the controls of his stealth ship Shadow Walker and watched the alien planet grow larger on his screen. 3 days had passed since Admiral Choi made the decision to investigate more Confederation worlds, and what they were finding changed everything. Another one, reported his science officer, Dr. Han Yejin. The city ruins on this planet follow the same architectural patterns we found on the others. Same proportions, same engineering principles, same decorative symbols. Oh Min-hyuk shook his head in amazement. This was the 5th world they had visited in secret, and the pattern was always the same. Buried beneath alien cities were the remains of much older settlements. Settlements that looked unmistakably human. How many aliens know about these ruins? He asked. Most don't, Dr. Han replied. The ruins are usually buried or built over. But I'm detecting the same genetic markers in the foundations that Dr. Bay found in the artifact samples. These were definitely human colonies. 50,000 years old, at least. Captain, I'm starting to think the scale of ancient human civilization was much larger than we imagined. These weren't just a few exploration outposts. This was a full galactic empire. Back at Nexus Prime, the situation was getting worse by the hour. High Counselor Vethrax had called an emergency session of the Confederation Council. His crystal body pulsed with angry red light as he addressed the assembled representatives. The humans have contaminated our historical archives with dangerous falsehoods, he announced. They claim to have evidence that their primitive species somehow predates our great civilization. This is clearly an attempt to justify expansion into our territory. Admiral Choi stood to respond. High Counselor, we're not trying to claim territory. We're trying to understand the truth about galactic history. Truth? Vethrak's light flared brighter. The truth is that the Confederation has maintained peace and order for 40,000 years. The truth is that humans are newcomers who should be grateful for our guidance, not spreading lies about imaginary ancient empires. Dr. Park had been watching the alien representatives during this exchange. Many looked uncomfortable. The younger ones especially seemed to be struggling with what they were hearing. High Counselor, she said, standing up, what if we could prove our claims? Would you be willing to examine physical evidence? There is no evidence because your claims are false, Vethrax snapped. However, if you believe you can prove this fantasy, you have 1 day to present your case. When you fail, your species will accept junior membership terms and submit to proper re-education about your place in the galaxy. That evening, Dr. Park worked frantically with her team to prepare their presentation. They had genetic data, architectural analysis, technological comparisons, and the hidden records that Korthani had provided. But would it be enough to convince a council that clearly didn't want to believe them? The breakthrough came when Captain O transmitted new data from his stealth reconnaissance missions. Dr. Park, his voice crackled through the secure communication. You need to see what we found on Kalari Prime. The images appeared on her screen and Dr. Park gasped. Hidden beneath the Quilari's most sacred temple were the ruins of what could only be described as a human spaceport. The design was unmistakable. The landing pads, the control towers, even the radiation shielding all followed patterns that human engineers still use today. But that's not the amazing part. O continued. Dr. Han analyzed the cultural development of every species we've visited. Their mathematics, their social structures, their concepts of law and justice. Everything traces back to principles that match human development patterns. Dr. Han Yejin's voice joined the transmission. It's like they're all following a teaching curriculum that was originally designed by humans. Even their languages show common roots that point back toward Earth's linguistic families. This was the evidence Dr. Park had been hoping for. Not just proof that humans had been in space before, but proof that they had shaped the entire development of galactic civilization. The next day, the council chamber was packed. Representatives from all 12 Confederation species were present, along with observers from dozens of colony worlds. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Dr. Park stood before the assembly and began her presentation. She showed them the genetic evidence, the architectural comparisons, the technological analysis. She explained how human engineering principles could be found in every major Confederation innovation. The evidence shows that humans didn't just visit these worlds 50,000 years ago, she concluded. We helped build the foundation of everything you think of as galactic civilization. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Some representatives shouted denials, others demanded more proof, and a few sat in stunned silence. High Counselor Vethrax rose to his feet. These fabrications prove only that humans are skilled at deception. No primitive species could have achieved what you claim. Then explain this, Dr. Park said, activating the holographic display. The images from Captain O's reconnaissance missions filled the air above the council floor. Ancient human settlements on world after world, spaceports in cities that predated current alien civilizations by tens of thousands of years. But the most shocking image was the last one. It showed the underground chambers beneath the Vethran homeworld's capital city. Chambers that contained what could only be described as a human command center, complete with star charts and navigation equipment. These images were taken 3 days ago, Dr. Park announced. The genetic markers confirm human origin. The carbon dating confirms the age. This is physical proof that humans established bases on your worlds long before your current civilizations existed. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Timrek, the young Quillari scientist, stood up. I have studied my people's oldest records, she announced. The creation myths speak of skyfathers who taught us everything we know about civilization. If these skyfathers were ancient humans, it explains why human thinking patterns feel so familiar to us. An elderly representative from the aquatic Solareth species rose next. Our sacred texts also speak of teachers from the stars. We have always wondered why our earliest laws and customs seem to come from nowhere, fully formed. One by one, representatives from different species began to speak. Each had stories, myths or historical records that suddenly made sense in light of the human evidence. High Counselor Vethrax watched his authority crumbling before his eyes. Even if these claims were true, he said desperately, it changes nothing. The humans abandoned the galaxy 50,000 years ago. They lost any claim to leadership through their own actions. We're not claiming leadership, Admiral Choi said firmly. We're trying to understand what happened and why. What happened, Vethrax snarled, is that your precious ancestors failed. They ran away and left us to build civilization ourselves, and now you want to return and take credit for our achievements. That's not what we want at all, Captain Jiho said, standing up. But we deserve to know the truth about our past, and so do all the species in this galaxy. Vethrax's crystal body flared with blinding light. You want truth? Here is truth. The Confederation will never accept human leadership. If you continue spreading these lies, we will treat it as an act of war. Then you're choosing war over truth, Dr. Park said sadly. If necessary, yes. The vote that followed was close, but the hardline faction led by the Vethran won. By a margin of just 2 votes, the Confederation Council declared human claims to be dangerous propaganda and demanded that Earth withdraw all personnel from Confederation space within 24 hours. As the human delegation prepared to leave Nexus Prime, Corthani approached Dr. Park one last time. This is not over, the old librarian said through her translator. Truth has a way of spreading, even when governments try to suppress it. Your evidence is already being shared among scientists and historians throughout the galaxy. Will that be enough? Perhaps. But be prepared for conflict. Vethrax and his allies will not give up their power without a fight. That night, as the human ships prepared to depart, Admiral Choi made a decision that would change galactic history. Instead of quietly returning to Earth, he activated every communication system on their ships and began broadcasting the evidence to every inhabited system in the galaxy. The transmission went out simultaneously in dozens of languages. Genetic data, archaeological evidence, technological analysis, and the hidden historical records that proved human civilization had once spanned the stars. People of the galaxy, Admiral Choi's voice echoed across thousands of worlds. You deserve to know the truth about your history. You deserve to understand how your civilizations really began, and you deserve to decide for yourselves what that truth means for your future. The response was immediate and overwhelming. On world after world, people gathered to hear the evidence. Scientists confirmed the data. Historians re-examined their records. And slowly, inevitably, the truth began to spread. But truth, as Corthani had warned, would not come without a price. Even as Admiral Choi finished his broadcast, Confederation warships were moving toward Earth's location in space. The galaxy stood on the edge of war,